Keeping the Flow podcast, hosted by Jason and Chad.
Well, here we are again, Chad, with another episode of Keeping the Flow.
Keeping the Flow. So should we change the name of it of shooting the shit or?
I guess. Today, speaking of that, that's a good intro. So today we're going to mix it up a little bit. So I've been seeing on some of my social media things dealing with the water industry. I've been seeing some comments, talking about, is there anything out there on the wastewater side? So today we're going to mix it up a little bit and we're going to talk to a wastewater supervisor. Lisa Perry is going to be on with us today. Wastewater is kind of one of those things for me. That's where I got my start. Realistically, I started, like I said, as a weed whipper kid, and then moved on the water side started on the water side, but then I switched over and I was an operator for quite a while. So I really like the biological portion of wastewater. The difference between drinking water, treating drinking water, and wastewater is biology. And I'm sure Lisa's going to get into all of that because she teaches at Blackhawk as well. So
she's a biology teacher, right?
No, she teaches the wastewater classes at Blackhawk College.
Okay.
I teach the drinking water, and she teaches the wastewater. So, for operators that are wanting to learn about wastewater and maybe try to achieve that certification, she teaches that at Blackhawk. I don't know if she'll talk much about that. We'll see what she has to say, but she is a teacher at Blackhawk. So, but
That's
for
good.
me, like I started to say, is I like the whole ecosystem, the biology part of, the different bugs that are in the water that break down the waste and clean the water naturally. So
that sounds very interesting.
So what else you been up to, Chad? Anything cool? How's the puppy? You got a puppy on the last airing.
That puppy. Yes, he is coming into his own, and he's a rambunctious puppy now. Now he thinks he owns the place. So now his name is King Louie.
Okay.
And he likes to chew my feet and my pants, my pant legs, and anything else he can get his little teeth on. So we got to watch him closely. But he's fun. He is a rambunctious little thing for sure. I'm not used to it. But what have you been up to? It's been a whole week almost.
Oh, now's the time for budgets and everything associated with budgets. You just get done with your budget, and then you think it's all over, and then you get like two months break, and then you're back into already doing 2026's budget, which 2025 is going pretty fast. I mean, we're already almost into June here, so this summer.
I told my
crazy.
kid, my twin boys will turn 15 on Sunday. And I said, think about this. In 6 months, you'll be halfway done with school and it'll be Christmas. So what do you think about that?
That's one way to look at it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So I'm like, time flies. So enjoy your summer.
Yeah. We're doing that. And then I'm getting ready to go on vacations. I'm kind of thinking I'm not going to give the audience too much, but maybe while I'm over there, I can get some clips. I'm kind of the water nerds. I don't know if we happen to come across a water plant or a wastewater plant, I might have to stop. Maybe I'll get some footage for one of our airings.
You should. And then we planned, and I owe you something. I owe you information on YouTube, so we can start a little YouTube channel too, and you can post there and just do some short little videos of differences between processes or things that are going on. So that'd be cool. Yeah, let's try that.
Cool. Well, you want to get into this?
Waist deep. Waist deep.
All right. So let's get into our guests. Here we go.
All right. Cool.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Keeping the Flow. I'm your host, Jason Upton, and with me is my co-host, Chad Johnson. How you doing, Chad?
Hi. Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
So today we got we're taking an interesting twist to keeping the flow. Keeping the flow, generally we think water, right? But we don't think what's also under the ground, which is our wastewater pipes, which they flow as well. So we're going to keep the flow. We're going to talk a little bit about wastewater. And our guest today is Lisa Perry. Lisa is the wastewater supervisor in Rock Island. She's also the pre-treatment coordinator, an instructor at Blackhawk College. She holds her Class 1 wastewater and her Class C water. So welcome, Lisa Perry.
Thanks for having me.
So you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself? Because I know your bio is probably pretty lengthy.
Yeah, been started with the city of Rock Island 36 years ago as a lab tech, moved up to wastewater chemist, and a little over 10 years ago became supervisor at the wastewater treatment plant. I currently the chair for the Northwest section for the Illinois Association of Wastewater Pollution Control Operators, and I also happen to be one of the founding members of the Illinois section of AWWA Women in Water Committee.
Nice. Nice. Tell us a little bit about the difference in treating. What's the difference in treatment between wastewater and drinking water?
Drinking water is more of a chemical process, where wastewater treatment is a biological process. At the treatment plant, we set up an ecosystem it mimics what's going on in what Mother Nature does. And depending upon the sophistication of the treatment process you're using, Mother Nature could take up to 30 days to treat a certain amount of wastewater, where when we get into what we use at Rock Island, is activated sludge. We've sped that process up so that it only takes 8 hours to do that same process. But it's all a biological process that we are making sure that the microorganisms have what they need to remove the pollutants from the water.
Nice. What do you think, Lisa, are some of the biggest challenges? I mean, it's kind of weird. I'm questioning you, right? So Lisa is one of my favorite supervisors at the wastewater treatment plant. So I know a little bit. I'm kind of playing like trying to be a good host here. So what would you say would be some of the biggest challenges in wastewater today?
Right now, I think one of the biggest challenges of wastewater is the old in wastewater in really decrepit age of our infrastructure, whether it's Rock Island, any of the cities. That's one of the things most cities have spent more time looking at their drinking water because that's something everybody sees. Where the wastewater, it goes down the drain, never to be seen again. And so, the proverbial can has been kicked down the road so far that we're now up against the wall. And we all need funding to be able to improve this infrastructure, bring it up to, hopefully the 21st century, but at least the 20th century in some respects. And that's, we can't expect our ratepayers to pay what it's going to cost to fix these things. If we had done, these things all along, planned for their obsolescence, and that we'd be in a much better position. But cities just didn't do that because they didn't want to be the bad guys and raise the rates and that. So we had to do what we could with the money we had. And but it's getting to the point. And as the years have gone on, there's more regulations, more things we have to remove. That all costs money to do those things. So it's, the biggest thing is the age of our infrastructure and not having the funding to replace it.
And when we talk about infrastructure, we're not just talking about what's underground too. We're talking about the plants, the treatment plants, and all the processes that are a part of those. And the technology that's a part of those is growing. Sometimes I ask a question of, are we really gaining with technology today? Whether it be on the water or the wastewater side, do we see that there's an advantage to technology? I would say that it speeds up how we do things, right? But I don't know if that's always a good thing because the cost over time, to pay for technology and upgrades, what are we really getting? What you got opinion on that?
Yeah, that's the thing. For example, at our main plant, that plant was built in 1940. I'm still using some of the equipment that's original to the plant. And one of the issues we've had, one of the big things I had to tackle was they quote upgraded our grit removal. And grit is, sand, gravel, eggshells, all that kind of particulate material that comes into the plant. That was the upgrade they did was an abject fail. And I know there's been a lot of salesmen come in and say, oh, well, you should have this, and we should. Well, those processes take money. And so I always tell them, I have a 1940s plant. 1940s grit removal works just fine for us. That's what we've gone back to. That's what it was a hard road to get there, but it works for us. It does what we need it to do. And it's a very simple process. To quote a famous movie line from my favorite movie is, the more they overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain. And some of these new
That's a good one.
yeah, that, a lot of these new technologies just, yes, they're good in that, but there's more moving parts, there's more maintenance involved.
Right.
And maintenance costs money.
So, Lisa, I saw, I was doom scrolling on Facebook, of course, like most people, but I saw a stupid meme that showed a picture of a 1972 washing machine, and it said, "I will pay double just to get this model back."
Right.
No,
Because you have one moving part, right?
Yeah, and that's what I sometimes question. Like, how efficient are we when, like, maybe it saves us personally some time, but how much more efficient are we? Because it seems like we're always making repairs. The more the technology that we get, upgrades and reboots and everything that's associated with that type of technology. But what are some good funding sources? I mean, the EPA funds,
Yeah, unfortunately, they touted that, under the Biden administration, that there was all these um money being sent out, but it's mostly again geared toward drinking water and not the wastewater side. That we've been limited on the wastewater side. Is to, right now my only source of funding is the state revolving loan fund, and apparently that's getting hacked as well. Um, and that, but after funding and the aging infrastructure, I think it's dealing with, trying to find people that want to work in the wastewater plant. That it's, the one of the downsides is that it's, a 24/7 operation. So we have shift work. So there's, off shifts and that. The benefit, one of the good benefits we have is that my operators work 4 10-hour days. So, they have 3 days off a week. So that's kind of a plus, but, we're also kind of in the metro area where we're at. We're kind of fighting with each other over pay as well. That, some of the other cities are offering more than what we can offer. Um,
and that's been a hot topic on both water and wastewater, and just, I don't know, in general, all over, people having hard time staffing positions, staffing their plants. Uh, we see it, we talk about it. I don't know how. What are some solutions? Do you have any solutions to how do we get more people interested in the public works, a portion of?
I think we maybe should participate more in the schools to highlight what's out there and what's available, and trying to, and even talking to STEM groups and that to show them what's available, and um that, there are. And I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I've done, I think, okay for myself, and it's been a good career that I've had. And um, that it's become a real passion of mine, in the wastewater, and drinking water. The same people that really get into it, it becomes a passion for them as well. But I think we need to put it out there that those jobs are out there, and that, we're still one of the industries that, at least in Illinois, we still have a pension that we can pay into, which, most private firms don't have a pension. It's a 401k. So you're at the mercy of, the stock market and that kind of stuff where, we do have that pension and it's a big plus. But I also know I have a newer employee, that he had mentioned to one of my other employees, well, I can go make more doing Uber in a day than I can make being here. But it's like the short-sightedness of that. There's no paid time off. There's no sick time. There's no no pension or 401k.
People like to listen to maybe on the way to work or maybe while they're working shift work. I've come to find out one of my operators at the water treatment plant listens to the podcast. So that's good. We got one audience member and he'll probably dial in. But what are some other things? So we talked about infrastructure, trying to get people into the industry. What about some things that are driven by the EPA? So whether it be the nutrients, you want to maybe talk a little bit about nutrient removal and how those regulations are driving changes in the wastewater industry?
Yeah, the big hot topic's been, is nutrient removal, and the nutrients we're talking about are phosphorus and nitrogen. And being the fact that wastewater plants have to be regulated, we're permitted to be able to discharge. The onus has kind of been dumped on us by EPA to try to correct some of these things. Here in the Midwest, one of the big, contributors to phosphorus and nitrogen is the runoff from farm fields. And farmers have a big lobby group. So, the onus has kind of been fallen on the wastewater treatment plants because we have these permits and are regulated to counteract what's coming off those farm fields, that we're tasked with removing more phosphorus and nitrogen from the wastewater and to make up for what's coming out, so that we ultimately are reducing what ends up down in Louisiana at the Delta, at the mouth of the Mississippi, here in the Midwest. And it's, again, it's a good goal. Nobody denies that these are things we need to look at. But again, it's how we're going to implement it, the cost of implementing it, and the ongoing cost of maintaining that equipment, and the ever tightening restrictions that part of the feasibility study that we were all required to do as our permits came up for renewal was to see, how we could achieve a 1 milligram per liter limit, a 0.5 and a 0.1. And of course, my particular plants, ones we could probably hit no problem. 0.5 is going to be definitely chemical addition to do that. Unfortunately, the way we're set up, we can't do biological phosphorus removal, which is a little less expensive than chemical addition. But I don't know how we would ever, without building completely new plants, ever achieve a 0.1. It's just not a practical thing for us to be able to do.
What about so you talked about phosphorus and what about some of the new emerging challenges like PFAS? We haven't really got into PFAS on the water side. We kind of hinted at it because it kind of, right now in the water industry, it's just all the talk is PFAS. And PFAS has been around for a long time. It isn't anything new. You would act like we're surprised, when we hear the word PFAS, but it's something that's been around for a long time. Treatment plants on the East Coast, out east, have been treating for PFAS for a while. But now we're starting to see it. It's starting to get on the edge of regulations on how they're going to regulate it, who's going to be regulated. How is PFAS starting to emerge in the wastewater side?
One of the examples is EPA recently put out a paper having to do, because some plants, it's been banned out east now, but the byproduct of our treatment is our sludge. We treat it such that it becomes biosolids. There's a lot of good nutrients that plants need in these biosolids. So we've been we back when 2000 we started up a relationship with a local farmer. We trucked our biosolids to his plant. Then that was fertilizer. Then he didn't have to purchase commercial fertilizer. It was a good, situation for both of us. But now EPA did a study of farm families and how they're being exposed to PFAS. And I think they didn't have really good data. A lot of the data they used was outdated and that, but it really put the fear, I think, in people, that especially the farm families, that they were getting basically poisoned by this PFAS because of the biosolids and that. I'm not sure if that was why, but the farmer that like I said, we've had the relationship for 25 years, declined to continue with the program because of worries about PFAS. It's the amount that's in the biosolids is minuscule compared to, what's in the rain. We all wear clothing that has water repellent on it. That's PFAS. And they're finding PFAS in places in the world that have never heard of firefighting foam or Teflon or water repellent clothing. And so, again, we're all tasked with removing it, but they haven't stopped the chemical companies from dumping it into the environment. There's a Chemour has a plant out in West Virginia. They signed an agreement back in 2023 that they would stop dumping. They're still discharging it to the environment, and it affects plants as far away as Louisville, Kentucky. And now they're, having to deal with it. And,
Are they releasing in the river or okay?
mm-hmm.
I guess the question would be, Lisa, like, it's forever chemical. Yeah, I was surprised. So when we started seeing it on the water side, and they started looking at regulation for the drinking water side, then we also started looking at it on the wastewater side prior to that even becoming what I would consider like more of an issue. We started doing some testing, and I was really surprised. How much our water, how much PFAS is in our water on the wastewater side. But then you realize, I think a lot of people don't realize that when they wash their clothes, there's PFAS that's in your clothing. So now you wash your clothes and they drains down to the wastewater plant. You're getting all of the domestic water that we're treating, and if we've got it present in the drinking side, then guess what? It's going to be present in the wastewater side as well, along with, picking it up off of clothes, off of the rainwater, like you said. So,
Or
I don't.
Scotch guard? Did you know? It's in Scotch guard too? So when you try to like Scotch guard your anything, you sit on it and it's in your skin. So there's not a lot
Yeah.
you can do.
Scotch Guard, Gore-Tex, anything that's waterproof,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's the forever everywhere chemical. So, do you see this? What kind of regulations do you see any regulations in the future, or what have you heard from some of the wastewater groups?
Yeah, there's going to be regulation, and one of the worries that several of the groups have been working on is the fact that being under CERCLA, being a hazardous material, US EPA says no, they would never come after the municipalities for handling, because the sludge is a material that has it in it, and we truck it off. Now, since we can't go to our farm, it all goes to the landfill. One of these days, US EPA, it's a law in the books, and somebody, even though they say now, oh, we'll never go after the municipalities, it can happen. It's a law in the books. And right now we're able to still go to the landfill with it, but out east there's several landfills that won't take the the sludge because of they're worried about any rainwater that they have to collect. Their leachate at the landfills will have PFAS in it because of the biosolids. That one of these days that may come to a screeching halt of us being able to go to the landfill locally. And then where do we take it?
Right. I guess it could be like that movie. What was the movie? Maybe you guys know where he's a lawyer, I think. And they put the records on the boat and they said it's a boat that's out in the ocean ever to adrift, you know? And that's the only solution I could see. If you're going to get rid of it, you're going to have to, they can incinerate it, I guess. But I guess what's troubling to me is a lot of states I've heard about them trucking it to other states. So how can you have some states that are trucking it away and other states are like, "Oh, bring it over here. We'll take it for enough money." So that's crazy to me sometimes.
Maybe we can call Elon and put on a starship and send it to Mars. Who knows?
There you
Maybe
go.
that's a plan.
Activated sludge.
And the sad part of it is it is a very good natural fertilizer that is such a waste to put it in a landfill and not utilize the nutrients that are in those biosolids, and instead artificially manufacture this fertilizer that our farmers use, and that all because of this one particular constituent.
Yeah. So one last thing that I'd like to talk about that I think is starting to peek into the industry too. On the water side, I'm starting to see it. I know we've seen it on the wastewater side for a while. Is when we talk about microplastics and pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals on the wastewater side, along with because people are throwing away, dumping their pharmaceuticals down the drain, and microplastics. I assume that's from clothing and things. So you want to touch on those a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of people, that we need for a lot of people. It's like, oh, I have this prescription, I don't need it anymore, so we just flush it down the toilet. Um, and we need to do more. Like here in the metro, where area where we're at, they like once a year have a drug take back day. We need to do more about that, about educating about where you can take those pharmaceuticals so that they can be disposed of properly rather than flush them down the toilet. And then the microplastics, those come, from a myriad of things that you wouldn't really think about. A lot of facial cleansers that, for people, doing their routines for their skin, and that have the scrubbing beads are these microplastics as well. I know some of the cosmetic lines are getting away from those and trying to not have those scrubbing beads in there. But again, these, you don't think about, all of these things until they coagulate into one area, and how, each little individual industry can contribute to a bigger thing. And, as consumers, we need to be more cognizant of what's in the materials that we're buying.
What do you wish that more residents understood? We've talked about a lot of hot topics for us as treatment people, but like, what is one thing you wish that residents um, understood more?
That just because it says flushable, wipes are not necessarily flushable.
Yeah,
I knew that was coming because that's what I would have said too. That is one of the great misconceptions, that flushable wipes are really flushable, and they cause us some hefty problems all the
Yes.
time. They get in our pumps
Mhm.
and plug those up, and people think that once they flush it, it's gone. It is gone, but it'll turn up somewhere else, probably in
Mhm.
one of your pumps.
Yeah.
So Lisa, I have a couple stories of wastewater operators fighting over to clean out the grates and things like that, of loose change, rings, or something to pawn later. But what story could you tell? What's the most interesting thing you found that probably shouldn't have been there?
Actually, this occurred before I started with the city. But the older operators had told me that one time they had an infant's body come into the plant. Yes.
Oh my gosh!
And well,
Mhm.
I didn't know you were going to go there.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
so
So
Wow.
Yeah.
So
It was at a big like police investigation and stuff, or
I don't know all the details, but yeah, the guy said, that was one of their worst days when they found
yeah.
that.
uh, so I got my start in the well, I got it started with water. Then I switched over and became a wastewater operator, and I did that for 11 years, I think, maybe 10 years. And as just a wastewater operator. And I used to find some good stuff. And it was always funny because my friends, back then I was a lot younger. Not much younger, but a lot, 20 years ago, And my friends always used to literally give me crap, right? Because
Like you
I
didn't have
would
enough.
find $1 or a 5 and I would wash that. And it's kind of laundering money, legit.
Yeah.
I'd wash it. I was nice. Get my gloves on, wash it up real good. And then I would let it dry. And then I'd take it to the gas station down the street, put it back in circulation. And they're
Uh-huh.
like, oh man, hey,
It's clean.
Hey,
It's clean. It's
well,
laundered.
yeah. Well, it was probably cleaner than the other bills in the cashier's drawer that,
Right.
yeah, we
right. Yeah. You don't ever ask questions where dollar bills come from.
yeah,
Smells like
yeah,
money to me.
Oh,
yeah, it's,
Very good.
yeah,
go ahead.
we have the county jail in town. When they have a big release of prisoners from the county jail, we we'll find a bunch of their IDs because of our system being combined. They'll throw them in the catch basin, and we get a storm, and we'll get a bunch of prisoner IDs from the county jail. That
When I would be working at the plant, we'd get a bunch of like prison IDs and what's the ramen noodle bags were big hit because we had a prison in the town I worked in Jacksonville, and they would plug up the sewers, I guess, so that then they would get out of their cells. So they would shove their ramen noodle packages and socks or whatever they could shove down in there, but we would get the same IDs, jumpsuit material would all come through. So
Mhm.
yeah, you see about
Contraband
everything.
and shivs and whatever else, right?
I think the most I ever found was like $5 though. That's about it. Never got rich. I did have a friend call me one time, a crazy little story. I had a buddy call me. He knew I was working the night shift one night and he disguised his voice and he told me that he had flushed like uh, a bunch of drugs down the toilet, that his house had got raided and he flushed these drugs down the toilet, and I was like
Uh,
naive. I'm like, okay, like I didn't know what he expected me, to pull it out or what. And then he started telling me about how much money and it was specially wrapped and all this. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't know. Maybe I could split it with him. I don't know. I did think about that, like, well, how bad does he want it back, So anything else you'd like to, talk about, Lisa, in the industry as far as
I get a question.
hot topics?
So
There you
Lisa,
go.
what type of or what brought you into this industry? You said that you were here 36 years. So what?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
tell us a little bit about that.
well, I have I originally went to school to be a medical lab technician. During my internship, one of the ladies I worked with, she wasn't criticizing me, but she's like, this isn't where you belong. So I changed and got a biology degree. Um, so when I go to graduate with my biology degree, I was told by the placement office, because everybody was going to Texas with for biomedical stuff. I didn't have any desire to move to Texas from where I'm at. I mean, this is where I've lived all my life. This is where my family is. I was told I was unemployable because I wanted to stay here in Rock Island. So I bounced around doing retail sales and banking, and then saw an ad in the paper for the lab tech position with the city, and got hired on. And um, so, and really, if you would ask me 36 years ago if I would have been supervisor today, I really didn't have it was a job. It was a stable one. It had benefits. That's all I was looking for. And I caught the fever, the wastewater fever, and I worked in my days as a lab tech. I split my days between drinking water and wastewater, and wastewater just seemed a little more, in some respects, more challenging because it is a biological process than the drinking water. Um, the like I said, we got to form that ecosystem for the bugs and that. And I think I felt it just fit my biology degree better. And just, you know, worked my way up. And even though there were some challenges for 26 years, I was the only female at the plant. Um, and, and it wasn't so much my coworkers as some of my supervisors. Um, you know, that they didn't think they'd always, previous females, they'd always found reasons not to promote them from lab tech to chemist and that. And I made it so hard for them not to be able to promote me and, and just kept at it. And, I come in and do the best I can every day. And like I said, even on the bad days, it's, a challenge and seeing how we can weather the challenge and keep the plants going and making sure that the product we always put out is the best we can put out.
So, being a founding member of Women in Water, have you seen that there's more women getting into into the water industry in general?
Yeah, there is, and even the committee. We formed the committee back 9 years ago in 2016, but there still is the good old boy network that women don't belong in the industry. And that I've been fortunate. Like I said, most all of my coworkers, and I was one of the guys. I was one of the crew, and I've had it better than a lot of them. But there still is that stigma when a woman comes in that they don't have any business being in the industry. And I think we bring a little bit different perspective and that to it, that we can be complementary of each other as part of the team.
So yeah. So what advice would you give a woman starting out in this industry then? Since uh, you've weathered the storm literally, 36 years, or even what would you give yourself advice for, yourself or a woman starting out and because we do need more women in this industry. There's no question about that.
That to if you find yourself in a place that's not conducive to you being part of the team and to learn what you can learn at that place and then move on to the next one that might be more conducive to promoting that you have a career and the talent that what you can provide to the workplace.
Well, this has been good.
So-
Oh, thanks, Lisa, for coming on the show again. I apologize. We're not the high quality, high production team. We're just a couple guys that are trying to get different information and different perspectives out there to our listening audience, whoever that may be. And some of the forums that I'm on, I see a lot of people asking different questions about the wastewater side. So we're going to try to bring in some different topics. Maybe that ending, what do you think some future wastewater topics should be for us to try to get on here? What would, if you were a listener, I think you are one of our listeners, by the way.
Yeah.
I hope maybe.
Yeah.
What would be a topic do you think that you'd be like, hey, I'm going to click on here and listen to these two guys?
Oh, gee.
Putting you on the spot. What is one of the biggest out of all these challenges that we talked about? What is the one topic that you think there's not a lot of information out there? It's hard.
I still think with the PFAS stuff and what things are going to look like on the wastewater side, there's still a lot of gray areas with that. Um, you know, we see what's happening on the drinking water side and but like I said, okay, if we can't landfill the sludge, where are we gonna go with it? And what are our options for dealing with it? And
That's good. We can figure something else out, in this nice little show we have.
You know what? We've had enough comedy in this show here today, Chad. I don't know if we need to go back and do our little intro talk because we've already had some conversations here. Usually we talk about like my shirt. Like my shirt's been the hottest topic for me and Chad before we interview a guest because, my biggest fear is that people are going to know that I've wore the same shirt twice, and I have it. So we're on episode. We just put out episode 7. We just put out episode 7, and I have not. I went and so I'm going to tell you a little secret, Chad, and I'll include you too, Lisa. I went out and bought a new shirt so that I could have a new shirt. So I still have not. $12.98 at Walmart. It's the new cotton series.
Hey, and in tribute to you, Jason, I have worn the same shirt twice. So just so you know,
that's probably the better perspective. You're probably better to get one shirt and every podcast wear the same shirt.
Like we recorded them all on the same day. That's what we did.
Right.
All of them.
Right. All right. Well, thanks again, Lisa, and for coming on the show. If you get any, we'd love to have you back. If you have a good topic that we think we can talk a little bit about, certainly love to have you back on the show. So,
well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the experience.
Thanks,
and
Lisa.
what an experience it is when it's the Chad and Jason show. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks,
Lisa.